Oh, we are now learning the last chapter in the book of Genesis, Bereshit, the book of Bereshit. And the book of Bereshit, as you remember, talked about the creation of the world and how Adam disappointed God, and that some 1,600 years later, God sent a flood, and he drowned everybody except for Noah and his immediate family, Noah. And then about 300 years later came along Abraham. Noah was still alive when Abraham was alive. It came along Abraham, and shortly before Abraham was also and before Abraham, after the flood, was the Tower of Babel. And then comes along Abraham, and Abraham is the first Jew. And after Abraham comes Yitzchak, and after Yitzchak comes Yaakov. And what exactly it means that they're the first Jew is not really so clear from the Torah, exactly what they believe in. But it's one thing is for sure, it's something very powerful, whatever it is. Because we see that God has given them all these very strange commandments and telling them what to do, and they do it immediately. They listen to what it is. Whatever it is that God says. So in the teachings of Chassidut, especially, it teaches that that's the main message of Judaism, is the same thing that Adam, to do the thing that Adam was supposed to do, namely to perfect the world. The physical world is supposed to be perfected. We're not here for ourselves. We're not here for ourselves. We're here to make the whole world a holy place. That's why Judaism has this thing called the Holy Temple, and why they made sacrifices with animals. What could possibly be animals sacrificed to do with a civilized religion? But the idea is to make even animals to be holy. Fixing up the world means that to make the whole world holy. And finally, in order to do this, the Jews had to get the Torah. And this whole book of Genesis is the preparation for the Torah portion that we're going to begin next week, which is the book of Exodus, of how the Jews were in exile in Egypt for 210 years, and then they got out miraculously with all sorts of miracles, and they received the Torah. And that begins the second act, if you want to call it, of Judaism. So this Torah portion, this Torah portion we have here, is the last of the book of Genesis. This is like the plug that plugs into next week, to the giving of the Torah. This is the end of Yaakov. Yaakov here dies, and that's it. There's no more forefathers. Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, there's only three of them. And Yaakov dies, but he leaves Yosef for a short amount of time. Yosef is the king of Egypt, and when Yosef dies, and all of his brothers, we'll see next week, then that's when the exile begins. So here we're talking about what is that? What goes on in this week's Torah portion? In this week's Torah reading, we learn about how Yaakov spends his last 18 years in Egypt. And 17 years, not 18 years, why not? 17 years, his last 17 years in Egypt. Some say it's the best years of his life, we'll see. And at the end of that 17 years, he feels that he's about to die, and he blesses all of his sons. He blesses them all. 12 sons, he blesses them all. But before he blesses all the other sons, as he blesses Yosef, of course, was one of the sons, but he blesses Yosef and Yosef's two sons. In other words, Yosef and his grandsons. Yaakov blesses Yosef, and Yosef's sons, who of course are Yaakov's grandsons, and they become Yosef's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. They become two tribes. They become in two additional sons of of Yaakov, and really they take the place of Yosef. So it ends up that Yaakov is going to have 13 sons, so to speak. Yosef is going to be divided into two, Ephraim and Manasseh. That's not really important for us now. What's important for us now is let's learn the sentences over here and understand what's being talked about. Now, just one basic thing is, and that is that the Torah is not like any other book in the world. First of all, the author is totally different. All the other books were written by people. The Torah is the only book which was written by God himself. Some other religious books, they claim to be dictated by angels or by whatever, but this book is written by God. All the letters, all the words are exactly what God is writing. God gave this book to Moses. Moses came down and told all the Jewish people exactly what is written over here. Was on Mount Sinai. The Ten Commandments, the Jews heard themselves, especially the first two, the Ten Commandments. They heard directly from the mouth of God. So everybody knew that Moses was saying the truth and that where these words were coming from. So all these ideas, these words, and the ideas and the stories and the ideas and the sentences and the words and the letters, they're all from God, the creator of the universe. And in fact, they were here before the universe was created. The Torah preceded the world. The Torah is the blueprint of the world. So, of course, obviously, we're not going to understand most of what the secrets are over here. There's Kabbalah books, which they explain a very, very small fraction of what these secrets are, especially as they're relevant to us. But, I mean, it's suffice it to say that there's a book called Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation. And you can buy this book in the store, Book of Formation. And there were people in Judaism that knew how to use this book to create a human being. It says that there was, Rabbah and Rav Zera. They were from the later contributors to the Talmud. what the anti-Semites call Pharisees. Oh, the Pharisees. And these were holy people. They knew, and they knew how to use this book in order they could use the letters of the Torah to create a human being. The human being couldn't talk. And later on, also Reb Yehudi Levi, he lived only like about 400 years ago, something like that. He also created a human being from the letters of the Torah. So the people that knew how to use it, and the letters of the Torah, it's like I said, the blueprint of creation. So with that proper attitude, let's go. Here it is. Vayechi Yaakov. I'll read some of the sentences and then we'll go back and we'll read some of the commentaries. Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim 17 shana. One second. Am I recording? Yes. Vayechi Yaakov, and Yaakov lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. Vayehi Yamei Yaakov, and it was the days of Yaakov, Shnei Chayav, the years of his life, Sheva Shanim, 7 years, V'arba'im Shana, and 40 years, Umea Shana, and 100 years. Okay, let's just read 3 sentences and then we'll go back. So Yaakov lived in Egypt 17 years, and the sum total of his life was 147 years. Vayikrovu Yamei Yisrael Amut, and the days of Yisrael. Who is Yisrael? We already said Yaakov. Yaakov. Well, Yaakov and Yisrael is the same person. After Yaakov, Jacob fought with an angel, so he got his name changed. It wasn't really changed; he just got an additional name. He got another additional name. This name Yaakov is signifying how he struggled. Akev means to struggle, and the name Yisrael is how he won, how he was victorious. In any case, Yaakov lived in Egypt, and the days of Yisrael came close to die. Yosef, and he called to his son Yosef, and he said, if I have found favor in your eyes, and as if you want to, put your hand under my thigh. What did he do that for? Because when you take a vow in Judaism, you're supposed to hold something holy in your hand, like even nowadays in the courts in America. I hope they still do it. They would put their hand on a Bible, swear on the Bible. There's a power that's above you. Well, in those days there was no Bible. The only physical thing that was holy was the circumcision. So he said, put your hand under my thigh where the place of the circumcision is, and do kindness and truth. Don't bury me in Egypt. I don't want to be buried in Egypt. This was Yaakov saying to his son, Yosef. Don't bury me in Egypt. Now, Yosef was the king, so Yosef had complete power over what to do. The fact is, he wasn't really the king. He was the assistant king, but Paro allowed him to do whatever he wanted to. And I will lay with my fathers. You will carry me from Egypt, and bury me in their place. And I will do, said Yosef, I will do like you said. Vayomer, and Yaakov said, Hishavali, swear to me. Vayishavalo, and Yosef swore to him. Vayishtachi Yisrael al-Rosh Hamita, and he bowed down on the top from the head of his bed. We'll see. Some say he bowed down to Yosef. Some say he bowed down to God. We'll see. Let's see the commentaries. A lot of commentaries here. A lot of commentary on these. We'll just take a selected few. Okay, Yaakov lived in the land of Israel 17 years. Rashi, Vayechi Yaakov. Rashi is Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki. He lived like about 800 years ago. 900 years ago. Vayechi Yaakov. Lama Parsha Zeh Stuma. Why is this Parsha Stuma, closed up? What does it mean, closed up? If you look in the Bible, a book, Torah book, you'll see that between each chapter there's a space. Between each chapter there's a space. Sometimes there's a big space, sometimes a small space. Right? There's different. The Torah portion, there's no space. There's no space between the end of the previous Torah reading and the beginning of this one, no space. Why? Why is it? That's called stuma. Why is it closed up? Because Shekiv and Sheniftar Yaakov Avinu, since Yaakov passed away, Nistamo Eineim, there was closed the eyes, believe on the hearts, Shel Yisrael, of the Jewish people, Mitzoras Hashibud, because of the difficulties that began in Egypt. It says that Yaakov died, and shortly thereafter, Yosef and all of his brothers, they all passed away. And then there began the difficulties in Egypt, the slavery. Davracher, another explanation. Another explanation. Shabikesh legalot at the gates, that Yaakov wanted to reveal the exact date when Mashiach was going to come. The Nistam Imenu, and it was closed from him. Breshit Rabbah. Now, why did he want to reveal when the Mashiach was coming? Why? Well, for one reason is that people wouldn't give up. The Jewish people were going to be put into exile, and they might think there's no end to it, like it is now. We've been already 2,000 years, but now it's a little bit easier, to so to speak, because we know that there is an end. Right? In Egypt, they were in the Egyptian exile, and there was an end to that. It was a certain amount of time, and God decided how long, and it ended. The Jews got out of Egypt. Well, so it is in every exile that the Jews are in. When the first temple was destroyed, so the Jews were taken into Babylon, and that ended. right? It ended. They came back. And why did it end? Because they learned from this exile over here in Egypt. They learned from this exile in Egypt that eventually exiles end. But the first exile that they were in, so they didn't know it would end. Maybe it would never end, right? The Jewish people, they were there for like 4 generations, it says they were. So the first generation, okay, they heard they were going to get out. But the second generation, although it was the fourth generation, the people there, their fathers were slaves, and their grandfathers and their great grandfathers were slaves. Slave and Jew were synonymous. And so Yaakov wanted to reveal the end, when the whole thing was going to end, all these exiles were going to end, but it was closed for him. All of a sudden it got closed. Why did it get closed? There's several reasons. Number one, if people know that the end of the exile is going to be, let's say, another 2,000 years, so, how am I going to benefit from that? It's going to be another 2,000 years. That means what is it? Another 500 generations or something. How am I going to, so people also give up. Okay, there's other reasons also, which we'll read. In any case, Yaakov, for whatever reasons he had, motivations he had, he wanted to reveal when Mashiach was coming, and it was closed for him. That's why this Torah portion is closed. There's no space between the beginning of this Torah portion and the end of last week's. That's sort of what the Ramban says also. Okay, here we have the OrHaChaim. The OrHaChaim was Rabbi Chaim ben Attar. He lived not long ago, like 300 years ago. He was basically from Morocco, and he said even of himself that he was the Mashiach, and he was believed to be Mashiach, and he had all the qualifications of Mashiach in those days. But for whatever reason, it did not pan out as we see that it did. I guess the people were not ready. Here you see it says, 1 minute. Yaakov. The reason his name here is called Yaakov, even though it says your name will not be called Yaakov anymore. That's after he fought with the angel. Lo Yaakov Yeomar Od Shemecha. It says your name will not be called Yaakov. I already wrote this over there. What does it mean? It doesn't mean that they won't call him ever Yaakov again. It means that you won't be called only Yaakov. But 1 second, is this what I wrote? Just one moment. Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry. Here, this one. But we have to understand why. Why is it necessary to say how long he lived in Egypt? What does it say? Yaakov lived in Egypt 17 years. Why does it have to tell us that he lived there for 17 years? Why is it so necessary? Here, what? They lived in Egypt. Also, it's another question. You didn't have to say at all that he lived in Egypt for 17 years. You didn't. This whole thing you could say. All you had to say was that he lived for 147 years, that's what it says at the end of the sentence, right? If you tell them that he lived at 147 years, you'd know automatically that 17 years he was in Egypt. It says already that he went down, he was 130 years old. So why does it have to tell us, right, where it said, by Shnei Begurai, when Paro asked him, how old are you? So Paro said, I am 130 years old. So as soon as he came in, the Torah tells us that he's 130, and it tells us in this sentence that he was 147. So it's an obvious, very simple computation that he was 17 years old and 17 years in Egypt. Also, why is it necessary to say the years of his life? Why wasn't it enough to say the days of Yaakov? Here, look, what does it say? Let's go back to the sentence. And it was the days of Yaakov, 7, 40, and 147 years. Why does it have to say the days of Yaakov? The years of his life. Say the days of his Yaakov. Say the days of Yaakov. Why? Says the reason is like this. Let's go.
You don't have both things, so pick one.
What?
You have
What?
Okay, a minute. There we go. Why? So he says like this. I'm sorry, I lost the place. Here we go. Why doesn't it just as it is? Okay, but maybe we can say like this: says the OrHaChaim, a kadosh. It's called the holy OrHaChaim. Because all the days of Yaakov, lo nach v'lo shaket, he was never rested and he had no peace of mind. He mission know that as soon as he was born, know that Satno, he was born together with a twin brother called Esav that hated him. Vadayim lo shaka shimsho omad, and as soon as Esav stopped troubling him, then Omad Lavan, then he went into the house of Lavan. Ve'elam mosif l'rado, and it continued to do more bad to him. And afterwards came Dinah. Dinah, his daughter, was raped. Va'od lo v'yavi rogzo avidus Yosef, and then all of a sudden came Yosef, was lost from him. V'husha Omar Kasav, that's what it says. Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim, that Yaakov lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. What does it mean? These were the years that he really lived. And the other years that he lived, he wasn't really living. The first 130 years was replete with troubles and difficulties and heartbreaking stories. Basamach lazeh Omer, it says, Vayehi Yemei Yaakov Shnei Chayav. And that's why it says afterwards, the days of his life, the days of his life, the days of Yaakov, the years of his life, to tell you that they were Shnei Chayav, means these were the years that he really was living. That's what it says, Vayehi Yamei Yaakov Pirush. These 17 years were the years that he really was alive. He was together with all of his sons in Egypt. And true, he was in Egypt, and that was terrible. He knew that he was in exile, but nevertheless, at the time when he was in exile, at least he didn't have any of the heartbreaking traumas that he had before. Also, it wants to say that all of the days, Kol Yamesh Sof Yamav B'Tova, that when the end of a person's life, it says good, if it ends good, then that makes as though all his life was good. And this is the time where it says, the reason why it says in Job that your beginning and your end will be very, very great. Because we see that Job, the life of Job, he had terrible difficulties. But because his end was good, so it was though that everything was good. Like it says, Tov Achris Davar, the end is good. That's what it says, Vayechi Yaakov, the Chaim Shel Shalva, Peretz Mitzrayim, the life that he had in Egypt, this was in his light, his eyes, as though all of his life was good. Right? All of his life was good life. That's why it says, Vayehi Lashon Tsar, Kivan Shalomar, Shagam Shaya Yamav, even though that all of his days were in tsar, difficulty, nevertheless, everything came back to be good. That's what he says. Here we have a little of it. I don't want to spend too much time with this. Okay, in a way of a remez, it says a hint. How do you say a metaphor? Why did Lamasho Dia Elohim? Why did God let know about Yosef? Kihu Mashbir says that Yosef, he was like the provider for the whole world. He provided life for everyone in the world. This tishlol heyoto balat chov lezulat, but Yosef, he wasn't exactly free. He owed somebody. What did he owe? Yaakov. Yaakov fed Yosef 17 years. Like it says that Yosef was 17 years when he was sold into slavery. So in other words, the first 17 years of Yosef's life, he was provided for by Yaakov. So now Yosef owes. Now Yosef has to repay his father back and give to Yaakov the same good that he gave to him. He has to give 17 years back to him. That's what it says. Yaakov lived in the land of Israel 17 years. This is talking about that if it wasn't for these 17 years, so he could have really gotten the 17 years beforehand, these years, but Yosef had to pay back the debt. So therefore, it was beholding that Yaakov would fall into the hands of Yosef, so that Yosef would be able to pay him back. Also, the number 17 is the number of Tov, good. Good. These were the good years. So therefore, it's only proper that each one should repay the other one. So it comes out like it says in the Zohar that Yosef is the letter of Vav, that's full. Vav, Aleph, Vav. Vav, Aleph, Vav. Like it's known the Yudei Nistros Lashem Elkecha. It says that those people who know the mysteries of God, which I do not know, and they have to think about what this means. It says the Vav, it's Milui Vav, 6, 12, 13. I don't know. I have to look this up. I'm sorry. I don't know what this means. But nevertheless, according to Kabbalah, that's the number 17, worked out that that's why he had to repay him back. Let's just go down to the Dat Zakanim. Rashi says, why is this stuma? Why? Because he wanted to reveal when Mashiach came. It says Tema, says the Dat Zakanim. This is a big question. Shar Yosef Melech Achar Patira Yaakov. Yosef was the king after Yaakov died. So what does it mean that as soon as he died, that's when the troubles began? It's not true. As Yaakov, when Yaakov died, the troubles did not begin. Yosef still was ruling. But Yesh Lomer, we can say, Shemiyat Nifta Yaakov, as soon as Yaakov died, Hitchilu l'shabed b'hem me'at. There was a little bit of slavery. But O Pirish Rashi shebikesh lagalota kates, that he wanted to reveal the end, and it was withheld from him. But in Tomer, and if you want to say, how did Yaakov even know what the end was? Yesh Lomer, we can say, mimalos asulam. Remember when Yaakov, he went to, he was going. Vayetze Yaakov me Beersheba, in Parshas Vayetze, it said that he laid down and there was a big ladder, Jacob's ladder. So he said that there was he saw over there the angel of Esav going up to the highest and highest levels, Parshas Vayetze. So he said that was where Yaakov got all these secrets, and from there he also knew when Mashiach was going to come. Okay, it says that Yaakov lived in the land of in Egypt. Why does it mention the number of years that he lived in Egypt, 17 years? Because we find that Yosef was with his father 17 years, and just like Yaakov provided for Yosef 17 years, also Yosef provided for his father 17 years. That's what the OrHaChaim just says. That's what it says. These are told us Yosef, that Yosef repaid his father for what he owed him. Okay. Next sentence. The days of Yisrael came close to die, and he called to his son Yosef, and he said, Imno, if I only find favor in your eyes, put your hand under my thigh and do me kindness and truth. Don't bury me in Egypt. Says Rashi, the days of Yisrael came close to die. Anyone whose life it came close to die, means he did not get close to the years of his forefathers. Abraham lived 175 years. Yitzchak lived 180 years. Yaakov sensed that he was only going to live 147 years. There's two different opinions here, how Yaakov knew how he was going to die, at what he was feeling, that he was going to die. The Ramban said that always his energy left him, but the OrHaChaim says that no, he knew his father was 180 years old, and it was one time that Yaakov gave a curse. What did he curse? When he ran away from the house of Lavan, so his wife, Rachel, she stole some of the idols, the teraphim of Lavan. She stole them. And but Yaakov did not know that. Lavan came running after and said, "Where am I? What are you running away from me for? I could have killed you all. The thing is that God spoke to me in the nighttime and told me not to hurt you. But why did you steal my idols?" And so Yaakov said, "Idols? What are you talking about? Who would steal your idols? Who cares about your idols? And no one here has your idols. Whoever has your idols, he will die." Because he said that, so it was removed from him. That's what the OrHaChaim says. 36 years of his life. So that's 36 years of his life that was removed from him. And that's why he died. He knew that he was dying now at this time. He died at 100. No, I'm sorry. Give me a second. What is it here? Let me have a look at it. Just give me 1 second. Here. He knew. Yeah. Yeah, so that's right. 33 years of his life, he knew that it was removed from him. And so that's why he died 33 years less. He lived 33 years less than his father. Okay. Don't bury him. Why not to bury him in Egypt? It says he called his son Yosef. He called Yosef because Yosef was the one that was able. He was ruling over Egypt. He could bury him. He had the ability to bury Yaakov. Now, Paro didn't want Yaakov to leave because Yaakov, as soon as he came, says that the famine stopped. There was supposed to be 7 years of famine, and there was only 2. Because Yaakov arrived, and the famine stopped, and the Nile River, rose up to Paro and started irrigating all of the land of Egypt. He said, "Put your hand under my thigh, v'shava, and make an oath. Chesed ve'emes," he said, "do kindness and truth." Kindness that you do with the dead people is called true kindness. Why? Because the dead person is dead. He's not going to be able to pay you back. So therefore, you're doing a kindness to him. It says, "Don't bury me in Egypt." Rashi gives 3 reasons why not to bury him in Egypt. In the end, the whole land of Egypt is going to be lice, in the plague of lice. Number 1. Number 2 reason, she'ein meiti chutz la'oretz chayim elo b'tzar gilgul mechilos. Says that in the raising of the dead, all of the people that are buried outside of Israel, that there are going to be tunnels, and the dead people will roll through these tunnels to the land of Israel to be enlivened again. Pretty strange, but that's the truth. I mean, it's not as strange as all the dead people coming back to life, that's for sure. So dead people, all they're going to go back to life. And finally, a 3rd reason. So the first reason is because of the lice. The second reason is because of these tunnels for the raising of the dead. The 3rd reason is that Egypt shouldn't make me into idolatry. They're going to make me into idolatry. And here we have a BalHaTurim. He says like this. He said, "Sim no yarcha," put your hand. That's the gematria mila, circumcision. That's where he had to put his. Interesting. He knew these gematrias. These words no yadcha right? Nun is 50, Aleph is 1, etc. Every letter in the Hebrew alphabet has a number to it. So if you add them up together, it comes out to the gematria of a Mila, which is 85. Chesed ve'emes, Rashi said, Chesed that you do with the dead people, this is called true. We just finished that. Emes, this is the notricon, these are the initials of Aron Mita Tachrichin, a coffin, a bed, and funeral shrouds. Here we go, just one more thing. There, this is what I wanted. Oh, yeah. No. Okay, sorry. I went through this. All right. Here, Rashi says, why does he say 3 reasons? Why does Rashi give 3 reasons? So I'll just tell you outside why he gives 3 reasons. He says, first of all, the thing about the lice, it says there's a Gemara that says that there are 7 people that worms did not rule over them, that were not eaten up by worms. And there are a lot of people, I think, a lot of holy people that the worms don't eat them up. There was just recently, who was it? They say that the 5th Rebbe of Chabad, they had to move his body years after he passed away, and it was completely whole. There was also now Rav Edelman. There was a Rav in France that passed away, like I think 2 years ago he passed away, 3 years ago. He was a Chabad rabbi. He went to Morocco, and he saved a lot of people in Morocco. He was and he taught over there in Morocco, and he passed away like 2-3 years ago. And they brought his body to Israel just recently. They brought his body to Israel, and the people that brought it said that the body was completely whole, like the day that they buried him. Nothing. Okay. And there's other people that. So therefore, this I don't think Yaakov had to worry so much about the lice, because it says that worms wouldn't even be able to eat him. But maybe you can say, okay, maybe you can say that, like, maybe when everybody saw that there were no lice, then they would make him into idolatry. Okay. Okay, these 2 reasons wouldn't, if these 2 reasons aren't enough, so then say, well, because he could say, well, then why did he say you have to bury me in the land of Canaan and not in other places? I mean, just take him out of Egypt. If he was worried that they would make him into an idol, worship him, so say, okay, bury me anywhere you want to, just don't bury me in Egypt. So therefore, because he wanted to say, no, I don't want you to bury me in Egypt, because it's going to be flight. It's going to be lice in Egypt. And one of the plagues is going to be the plagues of lice. I don't want you to bury me here. And another reason is, even if the lice don't rule over me, but there's another thing, they're going to make me into an idol. When I came to Egypt, so the waters came back up, they'll worship me. And over there, they worshiped everything. And even if you want to say, okay, so you know what? If that would have been enough, Yaakov could have said, okay, just bury me in another land. In other lands, there won't be the plague of lice. And also there won't be they won't make him into a god. They won't worship him. But there'll be the problem of the tunnels. So therefore he said, bury me in the land of Israel, so I won't have the tunnels. Said, but that wouldn't. Okay, that would have been enough. That would have been enough. So he just should have said, bury me in Israel. Why did he say, don't bury me in Egypt? He could have just said, bury me with my fathers. But what he wanted to be buried with his fathers, that was another thing. So he didn't say, just bury me with my fathers. There were three reasons. First of all, it was important they should not bury him in Egypt. They should not bury him. Why? Because maybe something might happen that'll prevent them from going to the land of Canaan. So they might say, okay, listen, we can't go to Canaan, so we'll just leave him here in Egypt. What can we do until the opportunity presents itself? So Yaakov said, no, as soon as I die, don't bury me in Egypt, not even for 1 minute. I don't want to be buried here in Egypt. I want you to take me to any place except for Egypt. What's my ideal place? Take me to be buried with my fathers in Canaan. That's what I want. But if it's impossible and you have to bury me somewhere else, make sure it's not in Egypt. And I will lie with my fathers, and you take me out of Egypt and bury me in their buried place. And he said, I'll do whatever you want to. Okay, there's a lot of commentary, and we ran out of time. But let's just do it. Here he says, V'shachavti does not mean that you should make me lie with my fathers, because he says you should bury me with them. Shachavti, he's just saying a general principle. I will lie with my fathers. Now later on we'll see that Yaakov did not die. It says Yaakov Avinu lo mate, that he didn't die. So this can mean either that Avram and Yitzchak also didn't die, right? They're also in the same thing. I will be in the same state as my forefathers are. Or it'll mean that it'll seem that I'll die. That's what the Gemara says. It seems that I'll die, but not really. Let's just do one more here. Sorry, there's just so many good things over here. Yosef said, I'm sorry. Excuse me, 1 minute. I'm just looking through my notes over here. Oh, here we go. So he said, I will do whatever you want. It says, Yaakov said, I will do. He said, why did Yosef have to answer Yaakov back? Yaakov said, I want you to bury me with my fathers, etc. Don't bury me in Egypt. And Yaakov said, I will do what you said. I'm sorry. Yosef said, I will do what you said, Yaakov. I'll do what you said. Says the OrHaChaim, why did Yosef have to answer and say, I'll do what you said? Why did he have to give this answer to him? He should have just did what he said, like we see by Eliezer. Avram also commanded his servant Eliezer to put his hand under his thigh. He said, and he did it. He just did it. He says, Vasamet Yado. He just put his hand under his thigh. That was enough. That was enough for him. But that's what it says. A tshuva she'eno tzorich lishavalo ve'hine hu muchan lasot kedavrecha. He wanted to just show him, and I'm making an oath that I am ready to do whatever you say. Also, another thing is that Yosef said, I will do like your words. What does it mean, I'll do what your words? Just like you'll do, I'll do with my children. Maybe it'll mean like this. No, it was another person. Yosef said, Anochi asek yederecha. I will do like your words, just like you are making me swear not to bury you in Egypt, but to bury you in Israel. I will do like what you say to my children. When I'm about to die, I'll also tell my children to bury. And Yosef is in fact buried in Shechem. He's buried in the city of Shechem. I will do what you said, just like you just told me now. It says, Vayomer Hishavali, Yaakov said to Yosef, swear to me. And he swore to him. And then he bowed down on the head of the bed. Rashi says he bowed down to Yosef. It says that a fox, even a fox, though, when he's a king, you have to bow down to him. The Ezra and Ezra says that no, he bowed down to God. Nachum Beinai, that he bowed down to God. That Yaakov bowed down to God. Why did he make him swear? Why did he have to make him swear? So we have two opinions. There's the Ramban and there's the Kli Yakar. The Ramban said that he knew that Paro would not want him to leave Egypt. He wouldn't want him to leave Egypt, to take Yaakov out of Egypt. He wanted to worship Yaakov. He thought that all the time Yaakov was there, either Yaakov was like a god or it was a good luck piece or whatever, but he didn't want him to remove it. I remember there was places we used to go and check mezuzahs. It was in New York when the Rebbe had this, and we go to houses that there were obviously not Jewish people living there. And these big apartment buildings. And previously had lived a Jewish person there, and there was a mezuzah on the door. What type of a mezuzah, who knows how it was? I mean, they were very small, probably not kosher. But the people that were living there would not allow us to take the mezuzah down. Even though it was covered over with paint and you couldn't see it, but still the little thing, they knew it was a good luck thing they'll take. So therefore, Yaakov made Yosef swear. He knew that Paro might make trouble, and therefore he made him swear that despite all the trouble that he would take him out of Egypt and bury him immediately. After he died, he would bury him in Marat HaMachpelah, in Hebron, in Israel. The Kli Yakar says, no, he wanted Paro to hear. Paro was standing there also. He wanted Paro to hear that he made an oath. And then Yosef could say, what can you do, Paro? I swore to my father, I promised him, if you leave him here, it's going to be a curse. It's not going to be a blessing. And that's why Yaakov was taken out of Egypt, and why he made Yosef swear that he would take him out. And now tomorrow we're going to learn how Yaakov told Yosef to bring his sons, Ephraim and Menashe, and he gave him blessings, and that, God willing, we'll learn tomorrow. Have a good day with Mashiach. Now, thank you very much for coming.